Welcome to our question and answer program. Please go ahead with your call.
Hi, Chris. In James 1:13, God says, "Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempt he any man. But every man is tempted when he's drawn away out of his own lust and enticed." Okay, so why would we tell God in prayer in Matthew 6:13, "And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil," when God is not the one that leads anybody into temptation? And I'll take your response, Chris.
Well, that's a good question. And there's different kinds of temptation. Now, James is referring to sin. That's why it says, "Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. But every man is tempted when he's drawn away of his own lust and enticed. And then when lust is conceived, it bringeth forth sin." So that has to do with sin, with just lusting after some particular transgression of the law. And God is not going to tempt us in that way. God's temptations or testings have to do with His Word, in obedience to His Word. And that's why you can go back to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden. It wasn't God testing or tempting that Adam and Eve sin, but it was testing would they be faithful to His Word, and they failed the test. And so God, many times in history, will set up testing programs for those who claim to be His people to see, will you be faithful? He set up testing programs for Israel and then Judah in the south, and He set up testing programs for the churches and congregations that revolve around His Word, the Bible. And that's why God wrote the Bible in the way that He did. Really, practically each and every verse in the Bible is a testing ground. It's a testing program, the way God wrote it. The house of the living God, the pillar and ground of the truth. Well, is it the house of God, the churches and congregations, that's the pillar and ground of the truth? Or is it the living God that's the pillar and ground of the truth? And there's a testing program that God establishes. Now in Matthew 6:13, which is breaking into the Lord's Prayer, and the Lord's Prayer was a prayer designed by God for the day of salvation that no longer has application today. The first few verses of Luke 11 present the same Lord's Prayer, followed by the parable of the man who goes to his friend's house at midnight when the door is shut, seeking loaves of bread. And that parable really is the prayer that God has designed for the day of judgment. So in Luke 11, we're presented with how to pray in all times and seasons for the whole history of the world. The Lord's Prayer when there's salvation available, and then the parable of going to the man, the friend, with the shut door when salvation has come to an end in the day of judgment. And here in Matthew 6, verse 10, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen." So this prayer has a petition, forgive us our debts, and again, that relates to the day of salvation. And in the day of salvation, we had not yet entered into temptation, but deliver us from evil. The temptation is the evil. It's the day of evil that's referenced in other verses in the Bible, and it is a time of severe testing. And so, this is the most grievous time in all of world history. And so the petition was, "O Lord, may you bless us and save us before that day come, because when that day comes, there's no more forgiving debts. There's no more salvation possible. And so deliver us from that time," and so forth. And that's the idea there. And now, what have we learned about this day of evil or judgment day? You could read 1 Corinthians chapter 3, which speaks of putting fire to the gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, stubble, and also other verses that refer to testing and being tempted in the day of judgment. And we've ourselves experienced the testing program, the severity of it, as we've gone through this period, ever since May 21. Just the entire time we've been tested. And those that are failing the test are evidence of the severity of the testing program, because they first went back from understanding that May 21 began Judgment Day, then went back from understanding the faithfulness of the biblical calendar of history, went back from understanding the timeline, the Great Tribulation, and then went back to church and have gone back to former doctrines like hell, or Christ making payment for sin on the cross, and so forth. They're failing the testing program, and it's as though they're being burned up spiritually in the day of this judgment.